The Dark Cosmos. Stay cosmic. Something is breeding beneath us. Written by David Shaw. The rattling screech of the door made my teeth clatter. This old abandoned facility was going to be the death of us space adventurers.
Blackburn, can you bring up the spectrometer?
I revealed the screen and watched the lights fire across the black space. The path opened up to us and showed us the large room of this abandoned industrial trade hub. It wasn't overgrown, just old in its display of rust and stained dust. Our boots deformed on those metal floors, and our hazard suits squeezed us in hopes it would lock out any dangerous substances. Carl said,
"This is unbearable. Hey, Captain, can we release our helmets at least?"
Our leader and captain, Lead Ready, looked around as Tom flicked his flashlight down a tunnel.
"That's not a good idea, Mr. Stark. This place hasn't been functional for 300 years. There's probably a lot of dangerous viruses, even if there is oxygen to breathe,"
Derbyshire said. Carl grunted and whipped his arms in angst.
"Man, all of you are too skittish for me."
Lead Ready raised his hand and said,
"For now, we keep our guard up. Tech Bond may have hired us for this job, but I don't trust them one bit. Could have easily sent their own people to clean up after themselves, but they hired us. Good for our pockets."
That's a good point, and it made me shake with internal distress.
"Once we get the credits from this, we can own our own space. You guys deserve the reward."
We cheered and nodded our heads in respect to that speech. Indeed, that's what we were all working towards. A bright future.
"Blackburn, Derbyshire, give me a status." "I'm not picking up on any high radiation levels, so we're good there."
Which was good. Our regular suits wouldn't protect against incredibly high radiation. Well, except for my suit, of course. It was specially hardened against radiation, but that's mostly because I'd be taking the risk of going first into any areas with high radiation. Derbyshire said,
"Contaminants are numerous, and many of them would kill us, so yeah, Carl can suffer for all I care."
It wasn't going to be Carl, but me that was going to suffer. That made me shiver each second we were here. Tom laughed, then replied,
"We haven't suffered yet. Hey, boss, I think I found the way to the target. The moisture must be kicking down here if there's fungus growing on the roof." "Hold on, let me see that."
We went down that long corridor. The whole wall was filled with vines that climbed to the floor, murky with tiny leaves. I stood there like everyone else, looking up in awe at the plant life that grew off the roof. There was a large blue flower bulb that threatened to open. Black thorns adorned the neckline as its petals spread out wide. The other flowers were just as weird. Some had vines hanging from their necks, while others had serrated barbs on their stems.
"What the hell is that?"
Elliot asked. There was a piece of fabric hanging from an outstretched vine. That fabric alone wouldn't have been special in and of itself, until I saw the dried splashes of blood upon it. My heart pounded harder the closer we got. Carl said,
"Ain't this something?"
Lead Ready said,
"Be careful."
Winsome and Carl went over to it, and once they reached under the discarded fabric, Carl shot a grapple from his wrist guard. The metal line cut through the greenery and sent shards of leaves falling. The line lifted him with ease, and he pulled off the fabric. Carl said,
Looks like this cloth is from one of those slim indoor suits they wore back then. Probably can sell this for a pretty penny if we can give this to a collector. This whole place can be a gold mine for the right person.
Ledready said.
Our main job is the samples of this tree. We need to find the roots. We get paid the most there. As far as this place, looks like mostly junk. So, Blackburn and Tom, you'll be the ones confiscating anything of worth.
Derbyshire groaned at that.
Should we be taking anything, considering this is private property? That they abandoned. What they don't know can't hurt them. Nobody here except us, and where others have failed, we'll succeed.
That was who we were at heart. Even though we called ourselves explorers, it would be way more accurate to say we were pirates. Just like the privateers of the past, we were private ship owners who could move faster than the government-controlled space programs. Mr. Ledready was respected and well known as one of the best privateers. The Heavy Blade was the honored ship that we flew through the Andromeda Galaxy with authority. We didn't have to worry too much about the intergalactic patrol since they didn't police space too far from any colony planets as effectively. So we got many of the contracts from private companies and individuals who either wanted us to explore space or to even access new discoveries. That's what we were doing here, to find our target, a tree.
Do you think the blood belongs to the wearer? Did someone get injured?
That was probably the question on all of our minds. Would we get injured too? Carl held up the fabric and stared at it.
Not sure. Hey, Ledready, you didn't tell us anything about this. You sure this is gonna be a quick job?
Ledready didn't even turn around.
It will be. Just keep walking.
We were now wading through grass, peeking out through the metal floor. There was so much plant life here. Pipes were running haphazardly along the walls. The vines that crossed around those pipes were huge, and it showed how decrepit this place has become. We got closer to the shrubs that shivered in the dead space, yet there was no wind. That was weird. The grass blades were moving back and forth like a wave. It was the only thing moving in this dead corridor of cold metal other than us. Granted, it was a beautiful sight under the glare of our flashlights, but this should be impossible. I asked,
Is there wind pressure here?
Derbyshire and Elliot turned toward me with confused stares. Ledready said,
Is there a problem, Blackburn?
I replied.
I got a hunch there's some pressure pulling in on the grass and everything else in here. The question is the source.
Winsome said,
Then either the ventilation is still on or something else is creating that circulation.
This was a decrepit dump, so the idea of anything functioning in this place was laughable, to say the least. The grass froze. Ledready slowed down and turned as Tom passed right by him. Tom walked to the edge of the tunnel and stopped.
Damn, this is amazing.
Ledready asked.
What are you suggesting, Winsome?
Winsome shrugged.
Nothing really. It's not like I'm invested in this beyond completing the mission.
Ledready frowned at her.
Everything matters. Hey guys, you got...
Tom's piercing scream ruptured our sanity into a million fragments. We all looked down the tunnel to see Tom mid-air and wrapped up in something. I couldn't be sure what it was, but I wasn't waiting to find out. I rushed past the others. The darkness fled around me with a furnace of colors until it deepened into a void. When I came to the other end, I saw nothing but screw-shaped weeds with bright yellow flowers. Where was he? I could still hear his screaming, so he was close by. Carl passed me and glanced up. I followed suit, and that's when I saw Tom being carried up into a huge gaping hole in the ceiling. Where it led, I couldn't be sure. But from the roof on the other side, it was clearly another floor in this place. Carl fired his grapple into the next room. I couldn't see what was around Tom. The creaks of bent material and cracks in the glass made my teeth clench. We had to get him back, but by the time Carl flew up into the roof, Tom was gone thanks to that thing. The darkness consumed him.
The hell just happened?
We stood there with frozen faces and stalled hearts. That was a good question. None of us had that answer. We wished we did. Elliot shot his grapple and went up too. I shook myself out of my confusion and used mine as well. The line tugged hard on my waist and launched me into the darkness. My shoulder bashed against something on the way up, but I kept my mind calm, even as my breath increased in haste. I dropped onto unsteady flooring as I unattached my grapple line. Looking around, all I saw was darkness, but I could make out the shapes of pipes and grooves as my eyes adjusted. Elliot and Carl were running further down. A beep pierced through the silence and left me staggered in my hesitation.
Elliot! Carl!
They didn't respond as I kept walking. That beep was infuriating, but my chasing heartbeat was worse. It controlled everything in my head, but it got worse than that. Carl said something, but it was incoherent, as a noise fizzled his voice into a confusing mess.
Elliot! Elliot! Why is everything going wrong right now?
What could be causing this interference?
We have to go for Tom!
The darkness didn't help either.
Absolutely not. Hold your position. We don't know what's up there. We all go, and we all end up with the same problem. 3 people are there. We just need to get in contact with them. Elliot, Carl, Blackburn, answer me!
My eyes kept adjusting, and that's when I saw a small light in the distance. I spoke as soon as the light from the roof bathed down on my suit.
It looks like some breeding repository.
That was at least what occurred to my mind from the sight of the 15-foot glass chambers standing on the moss-covered metal floor and steel cages settled on shiny tables. Inside of those chambers were living beings. Some were creatures I've never seen, while others had roots and plant life suspended in clear liquid. There was no trash. It looked clean outside of the overgrowth. There was a lot of equipment and tools left out in the open, though. The open chambers made me shudder. What happened to the living things they were breeding?
Was that Blackburn? Blackburn, can you hear me?
I said.
Yeah, I'm here. I just stepped into a time capsule the way this place looks. Where are Carl and Elliot?
I scanned the room and found one other exit beside the entrance I came through.
Not sure. They're not inside the room I'm currently in, but I can see where they have gone thanks to the trackers.
My speaker crackled.
Blackburn, what do you see?
Ledreddy was unreasonably calm, but that was one thing about him, his steadfastness. It made my heart slow its tempo. I said,
Just a weird lab. Nothing other than that, Blackburn, you better see something to report to me and quick. We're wasting time here.
That made me freeze momentarily. Derbyshire echoed my hidden thoughts.
Must you always put a time limit on everything? We're the only ones on this blasted rock. Blackburn, find out what happened to Tom and get back to us. If it's an extraterrestrial threat, we're going to have to get our weapons.
Winsome said.
Ledreddy told us not to bring them.
I kept walking, and my boots crunched into the surrounding plant life. Derbyshire said,
Well, maybe if we didn't get incomplete information on this mission, then we wouldn't be standing here looking dumb.
There were no signs of Carl and Elliot as I stepped under a garden. It was growing along the roof, though, and it surprised me so much with its range of colors.
Sounds like you have a complaint, Derbyshire.
Creaks complimented the sweat that rained down my face. A cracked piece of our leg brace rested on the floor behind a blue flower. Thoughts drifted wildly on how that found itself there. Could one of his teammates have lost it? Or was it removed? And if so, by what? It looked damaged, so it didn't look like voluntary.
I always have complaints. Not like you care. Tom got taken by God knows what, and you care about how long we're taking. Forget you.
I stepped close to it.
Don't tell me I don't care. This is my team. Guys, please, can we?
I stopped speaking the moment I saw movement. It wasn't Carl or Elliot, though. It was a vine, and it was slithering up the length of the wall like a snake.
Blackburn, what is it?
Vines were moving. That's what was happening. I was trying to search through my memory for anything that resembled this interesting discovery. What made my heart pound in my head now was not the fact that the vine was moving or that the leaves around the leg brace were shaking, but my lack of knowledge of this plant. If I knew what it was, I could control it. This was not controllable. I didn't know what this was, but my lack of trust prompted me to back away. Something tight wrapped around my neck. I cried out. Carl said,
It's me, dum-dum.
A wave of relief washed over my whole body. I said,
We've been trying to call you. I was busy. Also, Elliot is dead. Tom, I don't know yet.
My heart stopped. Dead. That meant any of us could go, right? As a pirate, danger came with the job, but that didn't mean I was suicidal.
How?
I barely whispered. I still couldn't see Carl, but his arm shifted and his finger flicked out toward the side. He was motioning at the vine.
Smart decision to back away. That was a trap, and that vine is the tripwire, and the hunter that laid down the trap. That vine would have wrapped you into a bind, trust me.
The vine? I ignored the rest of that discussion on the other end and asked,
Why didn't you say anything? To who? Nobody answered, too much noise.
There was a lot of noise on the other end, thanks to the argument Derbyshire and Ledreddy were having. I set my communication to be between Carl and myself.
It must be some form of interference. Only my communication line is clear. Can you show me where Elliot is?
Carl led me down another path. It was just overgrown with flowers, shaky leaves, and thin vines crawling up the wall. Before, I walked through these halls with no problems, but now I looked at everything. Because I was surrounded, I didn't know if any of these plants were the enemy, or if one of them was. If that was the case, which one of them was it? It was the longest walk of my life. I couldn't stop shaking. We reached down to an area that looked like a rest area. The light was dimmer here, which made me ponder where that source came from. There were empty beds without any sheets to showcase the previous normalcy that this place once held. People used to live here, and it was empty now. I looked around as Carl passed me. My eyes followed behind Carl, and that's when I saw the misshapen lump at the end of the bed in the 6th row. I swallowed and tried to hold myself together, but it got harder. The closer I got, the sicker I was. I stepped past the point of no return, and my eyes graced Elliot's suit. It was twisted and bent deep in various sections. Elliot's face was obscured by the cracked face mask. I blanched, and my hand laid instinctively on my chest as if my lungs were about to fail. They didn't, and kept going as bile rallied against my system. Carl gestured at it.
They left us here, and a bunch of stuff happened. I think we need to abandon this mission. Obviously, we should find Tom first, but once we do, we gotta get out of here.
That was not something Leadready was going to accept. My foot was tugged. I tumbled back until Carl grabbed me from behind. The roof flew by me as my back hit the floor.
Blackburn!
I was pulled across the room like a rag doll. My hands went around wildly, trying to grasp onto anything to save myself. I threw my arm wide again, and my wrist slammed against something. A surge of pain overtook my whole arm, but that didn't stop my will to live. My fingers curled around the metal bar of a bed frame. I straightened like a plank as I stretched from my hand to my held leg. Trying to figure out what was holding my femur was half the battle, but the other half came from my pained fingers. Those fingers slipped off the metal bar, one after the other. My eyes widened in terror. Everything flashed before me.
Blackburn!
Carl called for me, but I could barely escape the situation. I tried to pull my leg up, but what held it returned to its straightened state. I needed to get out of this predicament, but how? A shadow passed over me, and suddenly, I fell to the ground after a resounding clank. I blinked my eyes and tried to make sense of what was happening around me. A metal sheet dropped next to me, and the sliced vine it cut. Carl's voice relaxed me.
Are you okay, brother?
I groaned.
No. Take me up.
Carl put his hand out, and I took it. He helped me to a standing position. I saw my radiation reader on the ground. Next to that, the ankle area of my suit was grossly caved in, and there was the chopped vine that once held my ankle. Carl must have cut it with that metal sheet. That thin piece of vegetation dragged the full extent of my body like it was nothing. I looked up at the leaves of each wall plant, shaking. Within the dark midst of these plants were vines and stems shifting down to the floor below us.
What in God's name is going on in this place?
Carl said.
What do you think we should do?
Me? I can't help you, my friend. I can't even help the team. Some of them are gone.
What was I supposed to do when I barely knew what was going on? I exhaled in exasperation and took up my reader. My eyes flickered to the screen, and that's when I saw something worrying.
Carl, look at this. The readings are way too high here.
The radiation? We are deeper in this place.
True, but was that their goal? We knew these plants were dangerous, but we hadn't confirmed their intelligence. The question is if there was something more devious in mind other than hunting us off the face of this planet. I said,
We need advice. Derbyshire, can you hear us?
Blackburn, thought we lost you for a minute. Where are you? Who are you talking with?
Carl.
What are they saying?
I explained the situation to Derbyshire, and he said,
Look, I don't know what you expect me to say. Plant vines don't move on their own.
Victor, I saw it. It almost took me too. Carl witnessed it. You have to remember, we're not on Earth. This is a different planet with new discoveries. We could have happened on a new species of predator plants. I don't know.
What you're telling me is hard to believe. Those Techbon idiots told us to get samples of the oversized tree that grew up in their abandoned facility. It must be that. I don't like this. Those bastards never told us that vines would be killing people.
So what does the captain think? I can't hear him.
Like he cares. We had an argument, so he left me hanging and is going towards the tree with Winsome.
I didn't believe that. Captain Ledready was rough around the edges for sure, but he just wanted to achieve his dreams. We all did.
Anyways, be careful up there. Use the map we got and track yourself to the tree. It's better we stick together. I'm going there now.
That's what we did, as we pushed our way through a mass of greenery to get to our destination. I called out to Ledready, but he didn't answer us. Derbyshire still talked to me, but the communications were fuzzier than a cuddly bear from hell. In a deep bellow of white noise, Derbyshire spoke.
You see plant.
I turned off my communication line and turned to Carl.
I can't hear a damn thing now.
What was he saying?
If we see the tree and... Yeah, we have eyes on it. All right.
In front of us, over a large crevice on the floor, was a huge tree trunk. Thick branches crossed the divide with round blue fruits hanging from each hand. The vines, millions of them hung from each branch, and the darkness of the caved-out roof. There was so much of the surrounding walls and roof that got pierced through by the tree's outstretched hands. Carl said,
That is one destructive tree. It did all this?
You think this naturally grew here?
Hell no. I know Techbon caused this in some way or another. Sadly, we have to clean up their trash.
I turned my head and saw what looked like Winsome running down a corridor at the other end of our current position. Carl said,
You saw that? Call her on the line.
The interference is too heavy. I swear it has to be the radiation.
How long are we going to last?
I stared at my readings.
Any longer than 5 minutes and you'll have an uncomfortable old age. My suit's different, so I can take just over 10 minutes.
Then let's make this snappy, brother.
We advanced toward the tree. The roots were what we sought. Once we got that and got out of here, we could buy ourselves the security we needed. Land, family, happiness. All of those wishes would be achieved once this was over. Though this complex's corridors have been turned into a maze, we climbed down raised floors and crawled through collapsed paths with hanging wires. Roots the size of cars made the floor an unwalkable mess of bent metal and uprooted pipes. Our boots stomped through this darkened corridor and forced us to bring up our flashlights. Vines consumed the walls and moved with a slithering nature akin to a pit of snakes. The measurements of my meter were off the scale. Radiation levels were too high down here. We had to move quickly, or else the vines were the last thing we had to worry about. We did not find Winsome. We found Leadready, standing in front of the tree's trunk, though. It was the clearest shot of the tree I saw. Deep into the roof, shining beams of light came from the leaves at the crown of the trunk. Leaves didn't give off light. What miracle was this? Carl and I traded wordless looks of worry, unsure of how to process this magnificent sight. That wonderful image was disturbed by those corpses that hung from the vines. Dead people. So many of them. They were in green pods that dripped its disgusting payload onto the floor. Leadready stood under those dead remains, while yellow dust, akin to raining fire, fell around him. I wasn't sure if I should dodge them, but once I came into the light, I didn't care. One corpse was familiar. I shouted,
Tom!
Tom hung there, unmoving, and Leadready was standing there like it was normal, expected even. Carl stepped forward.
What the hell is going on here, Leadready? Tom!
I yelled again, hoping he would wake up. He couldn't be gone. I wasn't going to accept it.
He won't hear you.
And why is that, Leadready? What are you doing?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
I froze, unable to answer his befuddling words. Leadready turned to Carl and me.
He's being absorbed by the tree. His nutrients will bless it for a long time.
Carl said.
This man is off his rockers.
My fingers balled inward as the anger within me became unsustainable. I shouted.
So that's why you did this? You were sacrificed for this? Have you lost your mind?
Yes. What did you expect? A good profit is what we chase. Tech Bond gave me a deal, and I took it.
I scoffed.
I guess you get what you want, huh? And here I thought we were a team. I guess we're nothing more than pawns for you!
Don't be so overdramatic. We're pirates. Even when we go up against intergalactic patrol, we have to put our lives at risk. You could have died in any of those situations. What? You were fighting for me all this time? Fighting for my dream? And now I'm about to get it. And all of a sudden you switch up on me.
It has nothing to do with your dream. I would have died for you. You know why? Because that dream was ours. You selfish ingrate! You're only thinking about yourself. That's why I'm mad!
No different from any war.
Suck my dick! I'm reporting you.
Report me. To who? We're out here in space. There is no law. We're the law out here, and we eat our own just fine. Ain't that right, Leadready?
Leadready spun around to see Derbyshire climbing over a pipe that was above him. Derbyshire jumped on Leadready. The ground shook while Leadready and Derbyshire tussled. I was so shell-shocked I couldn't move. The ground shook and the leaves on the tree came alive with a gale-shattering rustle that sent chills down our spines.
Carl! Blackburn!
We looked back at a once-hidden door behind a mountain of vines and prickly plants. She was pushing it open against the weight.
Come on, boys! We gotta go!
And leave Derbyshire behind? The idea seemed sacrilegious. But then those vines moved. All of them, and they were cutting across the wilds with a raging ferocity. Carl said,
God damn it!
A vine slipped down and rotated into a contentious whip aimed at my face. I ducked the vine's edge and pushed Carl.
Go!
I yelled. I ran toward the tree, hoping to at least get Derbyshire. The roof's concrete crashed down as tree branches bent down due to the pressure. What was left of Derbyshire and Leadready became black soot as I stepped back.
Blackburn!
Carl shouted. More vines came down and flew toward us. They were determined to take us and make us a part of this planet. Nothing more could be done, so I turned on my heels. The vines clipped Carl and my legs in an attempt to stop us. We tumbled forward, but we never stopped. The vines pushed into the door and even gripped Winsome's wrist to pull her out. Carl jumped over a vine and grabbed Winsome's captor. It released her, only for another vine to grab her by the shoulders and dragged her up. I pulled her legs as Carl crashed into my back. We got pushed as the door closed further.
Blackburn! Hold on, Winsome!
Winsome's ankles got squeezed by the edge of the door, the surface of her leg brace being squeezed inward by the pressure. I needed a plan, but what could I do? Vines crawled through the opening and tried to wrap me around the neck.
Jesus, the vines are cracking the roof!
Considering the extent of the root's reach, that wasn't odd, but that gave me an idea. I let her go and fired my grapple into the roof. The vines threw the door open and rushed at me. Carl and I stared at the disgusting spaghetti mess of vines that curled up into the roof. Where was Winsome in this madness? When a vine grabbed me, I slipped a wrist guard onto one of the thicker vines. That vine smacked me to the side, and after I rolled, it rushed at me and pulled the grapple. The roof caved in and crashed into the vine. Winsome dropped into that concrete heap with a yelp. I jumped up and took her. I said,
Let's move!
We ran out of that wretched place as far as the heavy blade. Leadready said we were pirates, so we took it. What the universe had in store for us, we didn't know. But I was sure about one thing. I could never trust Tachbon, much less anyone else in this cold existence. Hey, sci-fi horror fans. It's Christian Harris. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thank you to all our official channel members. Your support means a lot to us. Craving another scary tale? Click that video on your screen. Until next time, everyone. And remember, stay cosmic.